Would like to introduce our speaker, Jerry Winchell. Jerry is a master gardener, just a whiz with knowledge and great information. Just really pleased to have him today to talk about sharpening tools. So Jerry, I'm going to move my camera so they can see you, and let me know when I have it just about right. There we go. It's all yours.
Perfect. Can you tip that down just a little so they can see just a touch more? Okay, that's good. That's good right there. I don't want to cut off my head, but at the same time. Welcome, everybody. Last time we got together, we obsessed very nicely over sharp. I really like sharp. I like sharp. I mean, knives, sharp things. Some people think I obsessed a little bit too much with sharp last time, but I enjoyed it. Why? Why do I like sharp? Why do we like sharp? It takes the brute force. Oop, we lost our screen.
I'll get that.
It takes the brute force of the work. Now, you ladies, you know what I mean. I mean, you go and you take your dull pruners out to the orchard, and you go to prune an apple tree, and you're working away on one of those apple suckers, and it just doesn't go, and it'd take Arnold Schwarzenegger to get through that apple sucker. And frankly, you probably don't want to be Arnold Schwarzenegger. You don't have to be Arnold Schwarzenegger to snip off that sucker. And that's one of the reasons why we really like sharp, because you don't have to have the brute force involved. Frankly, how sharp is sharp enough then? I mean, we like I said, we obsessed some last time. But is there some place in between? Is there a compromise? Let me give you an example. Say you're out in the blueberry patch and you're pruning. Or you go out there and you're going to prune, and there's rain coming. It's the Pacific Northwest. Saturday it's going to rain for another week, you know. And you want to get going. You don't have time. And those pruners just aren't working very well on the blueberry.
Oh, yeah.
You're cutting them and crunching them and fibering them and whatnot. And I'm thinking, are there any options to going back and taking my pruners all apart and honing the blades and oiling and spiffing and polishing and whatnot? Is there any option to that? I mean, can I do something now? Do I, and the answer is yes. The answer is, well, back up. The answer is a file, and I'll come to that in just a second.
I don't know which one.
Because you sometimes, like me, have issues with pruners. These pruners right here, you might take a close look at. Now, they were carefully stored last year in the middle of the compost pile. I found them just a little while ago before I went to try to use them. And can we say that they aren't quite in the shape that we had them in last year? First off, they stink. And I had to wipe the stink off as much as possible before I went out, and tried to use them. But the blades, they're a little rusty and they need oil and they need cleaned up and they need whatnot. But if I were to go out right now to prune blueberries, this would not be nice. This would not be nice. What can you do? First off, I'm going to show you so you see, and then I'm going to tell you what's going on so you avoid some pitfalls. So first off, I would put these in a vise. I really would. You've got a blade here, and you've got a file here, and I would put it in a vise to hold it tight so that you can smooth it with a file. The problem is, I've got a lot of vices, my wife could tell you. But not many of them are out in the blueberries. And so out in the blueberries, you're going to have to improvise some, and you need to be safe. And so I would find something to prop these against, be it a stump or a tree or a something, but prop these against something to hold them tight, and then I would file on them. If you just have them in your hands out here like this, and you're filing on them, yeah, it goes less good. So I'm just going to do it, and then we'll talk about it, okay? Now this takes a lot of time and a lot of effort and a lot of care, and you need to train for at least a month to be able to do this. These aren't in bad shape to start with. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But they are way, way sharper than they used to be. Will they cut anything? I think so. Okay, good deal. Now what did we do? A file. What is a file? This is not an arachnophile like Alice. She likes spiders, right? This is just a metal file. Some are cheap, some are expensive, some are round, some are flat and square, some are triangular shaped, some have coarse teeth, some have fine teeth, some have, I mean, some of the names of these things are amazing. Rat tail file, you can imagine that. Then there's a rasp, and then there's the mill file, and the double cut and single cut and bastard file. That's a technical term. I won't teach you a bunch of the other technical terms. You don't need to learn a bunch of them. Some of the terms get real imaginative. But file, simple flat file, single cut. Now that means it's just a simple cut, not an X cut, not a super aggressive cut. It's smooth. I need a handle for it. They sell handles in the handle store. And you put the handle in there, and you got yourself a file with a handle on it. Now you can grab it and push it and pull. Okay, file with a handle. Now you might not want to spend $5 on a handle or whatever it is. You might be a woodworker and you make yourself a Purple Heart handle and have a really pretty one for the orchard like that, and it files really nicely. You might say, well, I'm a real artisan. And I take a deer horn and I whack it off and I make a real expensive file. This is and it files. But do you need that? If I'm out in the orchard, I just whacked off a hunk of my hazelnut tree. Okay, it was a big sucker, let it go way too long. And I whacked off a chunk of that. Well, couldn't I use that for a handle? So I take my drill and I put a hole in the end. Okay, I'll try and get here. Okay, I'll try and get here. And I stuff my file in the hole. That doesn't look like a master garden. Couldn't you use that? I mean, it's rustic. I mean, it has a grip to it. Why wouldn't that be a wonderful handle? It cost me absolutely nothing. I chopped it off with a pair of pruners. Why not? Okay, so I got a file with a handle on it now. Now I have a blade, and I'm sharpening that blade. Remember I sharpened that blade? Now, don't cut into the blade. You slip, you slice. And what you slice is you. You don't want to go pushing into a blade and slip. So you turn the blade around and you push away from the cutting edge. Got it? Push away from the cutting edge. And that's what I was doing. You saw me doing it just a little bit ago, but you didn't know to think about it. Okay? Now, when you're doing that, you want to make sure you aren't filing on something else. You want to make sure where's the camera? You want to make sure you're filing on the blade, not on the bottom. So you don't want to chew up your instruments or your pruners with parts of the file that you aren't looking at. You're looking at the edge and trying to sharpen it. Don't chew on something else while you're doing it. So just pay attention to what you're doing. What kind of angle should I mean, do I file it like this? Do I file it like this? What kind of angle do I use? All right. I'm using about a 30-degree angle. We're talking about like that. 30-degree angle. Because this is a mono angle sharpening. You don't sharpen the backside of the blade. The backside of the blade goes against the scissor. Those blades go together, snip together. And And you don't want to go on the back side or the side of the blade that passes the other jaw. You want those to be flat together like this. So you look and you say, well, where were these sharpened? Those were sharpened on the other side. See that angle there? And usually on a set of instruments, on a set of pruners or something like that, go with the angle that it was sharpened at from the factory. That generally is pretty good. And so if you don't remember 15 or 20 or 30 or 45 or whatever degrees, look at the way it was sharpened to start with. Go with it. It's very close. All right? So you hold the file on that angle. Now, the file only cuts one way. Push. Pull does not cut anything. Pull builds the file and plugs it up. So it's push, push. Let's do it. Push, 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 push. That's how you use the file. All right? Sometimes the file will get plugged up, and you can take a wire brush or something like that and clean out the little grooves in the top of the file. And it renews its cutting ability. Some people have a official Crescent Nicholson file card. It's just a real fine brush, and it gets deep in the grooves, and it cleans out the file. Okay, so if you don't have one of these, any kind of brush, whatever, gets those things cleaned out, a little wire brush is usually pretty good. Usually it works. So, where are we? Quality of the file. Used to be you could buy American, Nicholson, Simons, some of those files made in America, and expect to have something your grandkids would appreciate and enjoy and still be able to use very well. Now, some of these companies have cheapied things so much that you really can't depend on buying any name, particular brand. So where do you go? What do you do? How do you find something that's going to work and just doesn't fall apart or not do the job to start with? I decided that I would go with the people who use these in industry all day. I went down to Woods Logging Supply and I said, hey, your people out there, your loggers aren't very patient people, and if you deliver credit to them, they're going to howl and they're going to come back and get stuff from you. So I want to know what you use, what you sell them. And they said, oh, okay, what do you want? I want a flat file, simple flat file, cheap, simple flat file, good. And this is what they gave me. Simple, it's about an 8-inch flat file. I don't know how much you can see of that, but it's about the size you'd want to carry in your bucket when you're out in the orchard. You wouldn't want a little bitty one, or you'd be sitting there chewing on it all day. You wouldn't want a great big monster. I've got some that are lots bigger than this. But that's just about right. It gives you ability to get in there and smooth and do what you need to do. Cost me $4.10. I have the invoice someplace. $4.10. Now the same file on Amazon, or same appearing file on Amazon, cheapest I could come up with is about $9. So, I don't know what the quality of the ones on Amazon were. I imagine they were Chinese files. This probably is. Some of the Chinese files are better than the American made now. At least that's what I'm hearing from some of the people in the industry. Okay, so anyway, your file. Now the file, you can use it on all kinds of things. And generally it's a fairly coarse, quick and dirty, but it does a pretty good job. You saw what happened on the pruners. They weren't very sharp. They weren't very sharp at all to start with. Quality. For the garden, yep, I use those. Okay. Safety, we covered that. Vices, we covered that. How much is enough? I mean, why didn't I spend half an hour filing that? Why did I just take a few strokes down that? You look at the blade. Do you know how to tell if it's sharp or dull? How do you know if your pruner blade is sharp or dull? I mean, if you just touch that blade and just move your thumb over that gently, if that blade is all rounded over, it's not sharp. Take a look at this. That is not sharp. It is smushed over, smashed over, beat up. Now you want to smooth that to the correct angle. You want that angle to be one fine line, and you don't want to see around the edge. You don't want to see a glint down there. You just want to see one fine line down there. If you have that, quit. Now, if it's not sharp, if it's not cutting, like these pruners right here, I could open those up and I could smooth a little bit sometimes. That may be all it takes. It doesn't have to take a lot to make a big difference in how those cut. All right? How much is enough? Talk about not gouging the parts. Okay, we got you out of trouble. We got you your blueberries pruned before the rain came. Got everything going on the quick and dirty. Now let's start going over some principles of sharpening. I'm going to back up and talk about some of the basic principles of sharpening. First is get good stuff. Gary and I were talking earlier. You don't go down to Dollar Tree and buy a set of pruners and expect it to be wonderful. You don't. You expect that they probably aren't going to last long. They may bend, they may break, they may get dull quickly. Get good stuff to start with. Good steel. And good steel, often good steel doesn't come cheap now. You can't pay huge amounts and expect necessarily to have good stuff. But usually the good stuff is more expensive. Garage sales are a good place. Some of the older steel, some of the older equipment is really good steel. And if you can recondition it, if you have the ability to recondition some of that stuff, oh man, you may have something your grandkids will enjoy. So good equipment. Garbage in, garbage out. Good shape. Now, pruners, past center pruners. Look at the blades. They're like scissors. The blades pass each other. They slice past each other. Okay? And I like those. That goes into a good set of pruners. They have anvil type pruners where you have one of your arms on the pruner is like a flat plate and the other is the knife, and the knife goes chopped down the middle. I haven't had good luck with those. No matter how good the steel is, if the shape isn't any good, it's not going to work. So get a good shape. Get a good shape. Knives are that way too. For instance, if you have a 2x4, you can bevel it. And is that a good knife? No. No, because the shape, you want a thin blade for a knife. You want a thin blade. You don't want a thick blade. You don't want it that thick. If you have it that thick and you try to go through squash or potatoes or carrots, so am I. Good luck. So you want a thin blade. You want a blade that is tapered, clear from the back of the blade to the cutting surface of the blade. You want a knife that has the handle, the tang go all the way through the handle. Now you have solid steel that you're gripping all the way through. You don't have a joint line in here that comes apart. So I mean, good equipment to start with. Good equipment. Good shape. Good temperature. Ah, if you have good equipment, don't burn it. Take a look at this. I don't know if you can see that. See that burn mark right there? Right there. It's blue and straw colored. Now, if you have high-powered sanders and high-powered grinders, and you go lean this thing against that, hold it on one spot, that's what you're going to do. You're going to burn it. If you burn it, it takes the temper out. Now, the temper is the arrangement of the molecules, how they're arranged, and how they affect the crystal structure. If you mess with it like this, you're going to either make it more brittle or you're going to make it more smushed. You're going to make it more soft. If it's too brittle, it'll chip out. If it's too soft, it'll smush over. Either way, it does not work good for a good knife, and you'll destroy the edge of that blade. So if you're going to use a grinder or a sander, and all industry does, the sander I have is a 1-inch wide belt sander, and it's known as a knife maker sander. Just don't sit there for a long time. Light pressure and keep the blade moving. Keep that temperature down. It's important. Don't burn it. Especially in sharpening, it's going to be an issue for you because you probably aren't going to be a knife maker anyway. Okay? Don't burn it. Fourth thing, good edge. Now, we talked about the edge. We talked about the edge before. This thing does not have a good edge. You want that edge to be smooth, and you want that edge to be even. And you want that edge to be one thin line down there, and both sides come together tight. Okay? A good edge. Now, there are different kinds of edges. We'll get into that some a little later, but on the shears that we talked, the pruners that we had a few seconds ago, that's a single angle. That's like this. That's a single angle. It's all sharpened from this side. It's all sharpened from this side. Single angle. And it's flat on this side like the scissors. Okay? A good knife, like a kitchen knife, is sharpened. Get a good knife on both sides. And generally a knife like that will be sharpened at 30 degrees, all in one angle. A kitchen knife, like this one, you'll have 15 degrees here, 15 degrees here. Right? Oh, how are we doing here? Yeah, now a knife will be about 30 degrees on the blade. A lawnmower blade, on the other hand, is a little more blunt angle. It's about 45 degrees. And the scissors are worse yet. I mean, they're almost a 90-degree angle. They're almost blunt. They're about maybe 75, 80 degrees. They want to really reinforce that edge. So each edge is going to be a little bit different. And just by rule of thumb, a knife is going to be about 30. A lawnmower blade is going to be about 45. Scissors are going to be 75 to 80. Somewhere in that vicinity. There you have it. Time. Let's get some demo going. You guys got to see some of what's happening. You're out there. What is it? It's a knife. Okay? It's a knife. How sharp do you have to have that knife? Now, you don't need a razor blade to shovel your potatoes. I know that. But if you're out there digging buttercup or bindweed or tansy or you want to have a little bit of an edge on there. If you just have a flat sheet metal edge on there like it's on most shovels, it will not slide through a lot of that fibrous stuff, especially if you have roots in your plum trees too near the garden. Then you really want a sharp edge on there because you're going to be slicing roots. So this edge, I'm going to show you. See, I'm not real versed at this camera yet. I'm going to show you how blunt some of those are. See how blunt that edge is? It's just cut off sheet metal and it goes all the way around. Now, I've sharpened a little bit on this. I've sharpened just a little bit on this. A little bit of an edge. See it? And again, hold it on an angle. Can I get you to see this? I wonder if I can move this out and get you to see it. You okay? Yeah, I think so. Aim this just a little bit that way, or this way. Yeah. Thank you. Perfect. Perfect. All right. All right, I'm going to turn this thing on. It's probably going to get noisy. But I'm going to hold this on about a 30-degree angle to that belt. And I'm going to keep it moving because I do not want to build up heat on this blade. Even though it's a shovel, I like my shovel. I got it at the garage sale. And I'm going to put a good handle on it. I'll tell you where to get the handle on that. There you go. Rolling, rolling. Okay, it doesn't have to take all day. But if you go out and you're shoveling tansy or you're chopping weeds on the plum tree, you'll like this a whole lot better than you used to. All right? Same thing, same thing. You go around to garage sales and you can get axe heads. These axe heads, I sandblasted this. I soaked it in Coca-Cola. A good trick, by the way. Get a pan. You got something that's real rusty. Take most of the rust off. You go grab a piece of, where did I put it? I have a piece of steel wool here somewhere.
Oh, right on the other side of the wood.
I've had a piece of steel wool. And you get most of the grunge off of there and throw it in a pan of Coca-Cola. You can go down to Dollar Tree and get 2 liters for $1, okay? Let it soak in there overnight. And then go back and you brush that all off. And if all the rust is gone, leave it fine. If it isn't, throw it back in for a little while. Rinse it off and spray paint it with something like Hammerite or Rust-Oleum. Some of these old True Temper axe heads like that are awesome. Put a blade on it, put a handle on it. Splitting maul. True Temper. Splitting maul. Same thing. Now, the edge, are you going to spend all day with a small honing on that? Probably not. I'm going to go and true it up on the sander, and then I'm going to take a file, and I'm going to go get that real close, and then I might smooth it up with a stone. But probably by the time I get done with the file, it's going to be pretty good already. Handles. Oh, drat! I was gonna look up something for you. Packwood. Up in Packwood, every year at Labor Day, they have a sale, big garage sale, huge place. Don't plan on going over 12 to Natchez because they'll plug that up so bad. But in that sale, they have a handle man. Every year he comes, and all he has is tons of handles, and he sells them cheap. And if you go to the retail store if you go down the woods and try to buy a handle, they want big bucks. But up here, he might charge you $4 for an axe handle or something like that. And so I've gone up there sometime and I load up on handles, and then I find these tools and things that we can use in the garden or use for the Master Gardener demo garden or something like that. We've got some there. And it works. It works. Okay. Well, let's go with a knife. Let's go with a knife. I mean, a knife. Everything's a knife. The axe is a knife. The splitting maul is a knife. The shovel is a knife. The knife is a knife. Okay. Now, how to go about sharpening a knife that's dull? Okay. There are a number of ways, and this is difficult because there are so many ways of doing it. If you are on just a real austere budget and don't have much to put into it, go down to Harbor Freight and buy one of these. It has 2 grits in it. You can see that one side is smoother than the other, and this is about 100 grit on one side and probably, 300 on the other. If I only had one stone and I didn't have a lot of money, that's it. $2.95 Harbor Freight, right? So people on a budget don't have to be without, you don't. Now, how would I do on this? This is an oil stone. You put a little oil on the surface because the oil keeps you from loading it up with metal shavings that come off of your knife when you're smoothing your knife on there. Same on the other side. Okay. Another way of going about it. This is on a real budget, on a real tight budget. Harbor Freight again. I don't only go to Harbor Freight, really. Forgive me for mentioning Harbor Freight so many times, but they happen to have some of these things, and I was there. It tells you what the grit numbers are: 400, 600, 200, 300, and it's diamond, and you can put a little oil on the surface, and you can hone that. You start out coarse, like 100 grit, and you go up to 600 grit, and that's getting there. And for most things, it's going to be sharp. Now, if you start getting a little more exotic, and I did, you can buy this sharp awl. It's a diamond hone, and it's a solid steel plate with monocrystalline diamonds embedded in the surface of the plate. And this thing is wonderful, and I like it. It cost $40 on Amazon, but I really like it. It starts out, it has like 325 grit on one side, and it has 1200 grit on the other side. So it's really fine, and it'll cut anything. It'll cut through anything. One caution: there are water stones on the market, piles of them. I mean, Amazon is flooded with them. They're all over the place, and I like them. I actually use oil on them, but I like them. I got, ideally I would have like a 400 to 1,000 grit. 400 grit on one side, 1,000 grit on the other side. And then on the second one, I'd probably get 3,000 to 8,000. And you can polish on that like nothing else. But the thing is, you have to be a little careful because they show you all these wonderful pictures on the net. And you'll be looking at this and thinking, yeah, I want to mate to that. I want a 1,000. I want a 400 grit to 1,000 grit. And you order it, and it comes back looking. This is what you get back. Yeah, the picture is wonderful on the net, but you got to look at the dimensions. You got to, and they won't always show you initially the dimensions. You have to look up the dimensions and find out how big the thing actually is, or you'll get to it. All right, let's just do it. Let's just do it. I'm going to start on this one because ordinarily the 3,000 to 8,000 grit I wouldn't mess with because it's too fine. I would start with a much coarser. But with this knife, it's already fairly sharp to start with. So I'm just going to put a little bit of oil on the top of the stone. And 30 degrees means each side gets 15. It looks about like this. So I'm going to slop it over here. It's about like that. It's about like that. It's not very steep. So I'm going to just try the other side. About 15 degrees per side, and it's 30 degrees when it's all done. And the reason we use the oil is to keep the stone from plugging up with a bunch of junk. Now, when we're all done with that, it's pretty sharp. It is pretty sharp. But I really enjoy overkill. I mean, overkill is wonderful. And obsessing over something like this is just absolutely. This is a leather strop. Now, I could go with the 350 and then the 1200 on my sharp awl go directly to the leather strop and have a pretty polished edge. I'm going to show you how to use the leather strop. Now these are technical. You have to buy them at the leather strop store for big dollars. This would probably cost $50. I made one, by the way. I made these. This is out of lace wood. This one is out of fiddleback maple. It has leather. You know where I got the leather? Goodwill. It started out something like this, like a pair of pants. They didn't fit me too well. They're leather. You cut strips and you glue them to the board, and you have a leather strop that you would pay a bunch of money for. You don't need to. I'm going to take this and you drag the blade at 15 degrees. Drag the blade at 15 degrees. Drag the blade. Drag. Now what happens if you go the other way? You slice your leather all the heck. So you drag that blade. And what you're doing is you put a little green compound on the leather to start with, which I did. You can see it's green, like a big Crayola crayon. And you wipe that on the leather, and that is a polishing compound. It's a very, very fine abrasive. And you drag that knife over there, you drag that knife over there, and after a few times over there, and you notice I didn't do a lot, see my left arm? You think it's sharp? If I'm sharpening my wife's knives, often I don't have much hair on my left arm. Anyway, that's how you sharpen a knife. There's not a lot to it. It's not a big deal. Okay, how much time do we have? How are we doing, Gary?
You got about 10, 15 minutes.
Okay, let's go through scissors quickly because we're just trying to get through a bunch of these. Now, this is a pair of scissors. This is a very chintzy pair of scissors. Because it's got, now, if I were looking at a decent pair of scissors, it would have something like that in the middle of it. See where the screwdriver slot is? I can take that and I can unfasten that, and I can take these two apart and I can sharpen them individually without messing the other one up. I can tighten that or loosen that. If it's too tight, I can loosen it. If it's too loose, I can tighten it. And it's a finesse. This is an old pair of whisk scissors, and they're good. And that's the kind of thing that I would love to find at a garage sale. Oh, man. Now, I buy some other pairs of scissors. This happens to be Fiskars. Now, see, there's no bolt in there. There's no screw in there. And the other side, there's none. It's a rivet. It's just a rivet pounded in there. And if the scissors are too floppy, you can put it on an anvil and you can tap on that and smush that rivet to make it a little tighter. But if you get it too tight, you're dead. And there's no adjustment. They're just disposable and throwaway, and I really don't like them. So anything that doesn't have a screw in the middle of it, these are Henkel. Henkel is generally a good name in some cutlery. They don't have a screw in the middle of it. It's junk. It's disposable. So I find scissors here, got a screw in the middle of it. Again, it's an old set. And those are adjustable, and those are take-apartable, and those are fixable, and I'll have these forever. They're good scissors. Same thing with shears. Look at those shears. It's got a bolt. It's got a bolt. I can take them apart. These should I do it? I probably just do it. This isn't on the script, but I'm going to do it anyway. Where's the whisk scissors? I'm going to just take it apart. Okay, little bolt, don't lose it. Okay, now this pair of scissors here, I'm going to take and I'm going to hone. And this is on the coarse side of my diamond hone, my sharp ball diamond hone. Now, instead of being 90 degrees straight up and down, I'm going to tip it just a little bit. Now look at that blade, and I'll see if I really did. You can see where the shiny is. You can kind of see where the shiny is. I don't know if you can see that. You can't really see it too well. But if it's shiny across the bevel angle that's on there, that's good. If it's too flat, then you'll only get the cutting edge, and it'll make it just too flat. But anyway, I'm going to just quickly, this is going to be quick and dirty, guys, because we don't have huge amounts of time, and Gary's going to be running me off here for long. All right, let's try it. See if we did it. These have a slot in there, and I got to get the slot lined up. Now, I could have gone to the 1200 grit instead of just the 325. I could have taken it up and gotten finer and finer. But, wake up. But I didn't. I just stopped because I'm going to say that they're infinitely better than they were to start with. And despite the fact that we don't have lots of time, how long did it take, you know? Come on, get in there, jump in there. I've got to get my, there's a little slot in there I've got to get a hold of. I may not have the equipment to keep that from rotating here yet. But that's pretty much the way they go. And if I were to cut paper, will it cut paper? Yes, it will cut paper. And I need to tighten that bolt up just a little bit as soon as I get that back.